Hey guys, welcome to another episode. Today I'm going to go over the AMC APE situation, what the purpose of APE was, and the whole ARB trade, which I'm sure everyone who's been trading recently has been, now made aware of. And if anyone didn't understand what happened or why, hopefully this will be a good video on it, and I'll also go over my thoughts on some trades that happened on it. Okay, so APE was pretty much created because AMC ran out of their shares authorized, which means kind of they would not be able to dilute more. Another good example of this was Nikola, which for months was trying to get that increased and only recently did. Um, and so they tried to get approval through a shareholder vote. And as I understand it, it wasn't really denied, but they didn't get enough votes to approve it. And eventually they decided to withdraw that proposal because they came up with a clever solution, being APE. Okay. Back in early August of 22, AMC announced a special dividend for one APE for each share of AMC owned, and that it also applied to list APE units starting August 22nd. So each APE would have the same voting rights as shares of common stock. Now, the APE units, the whole plan was that eventually it would be converted into the common stock on a pretty much a one-to-one basis, but they would need to get that number of authorized shares increase vote approved first, and it'd have to be sufficient enough that that could happen. So from the get-go, 500 million APE was issued and a billion authorized. And here you can just see how they issued like crazy. Within a year, pretty much, they issued an extra 478 million AMC APE units, and you can just see each quarter end, just increase. And at the end, they had 995, right? Million. My headset died. And, you know, that's that. So now we're going to go over Antara. So anyone who is familiar with the situation will know Antara. They're like the main firm or fund that's been behind a lot of the financing for APE. And you'll see as well a lot of the AMC APEs, they really don't like Antara because, they got a really sweet deal out of this pretty much. And I'm going to go over now. So on December 22nd, they announced that they entered into a capital raise with Antara where Antara bought 60 million shares of APE via their ATM for $34.9 million, and also a forward purchase agreement for 106 million APE for $75 million. So that pretty much averages out at 66 cents per share. And then 3 weeks later, or sorry, 6 weeks later, when that FPA closed, they also announced that Antara bought a further $100 million of notes in exchange for 91 million APEs. So pretty much they own about 258 million shares at an average of around 82 cents. Okay, and there was a 3-month lockup. I go over later. I think 90 days on that initial deal. But also when they closed the extra notes, they agreed to deal for 26 million APE shares being free of lockup restrictions. I'll go back in a sec. But here you can see when they announced a deal. They also announced a vote proposal together, and you can see APE went from 60 cents to like $1.80 in a couple days. And you can see here when they did the pipe deal, which was at around $1 for the notes. I mean, that's just a massive discount, and their average is around 80 cents, so they're always at a massive discount to the market. So pretty much free money for them. And you can see as soon as they filed that lockup waiver, I think 4 or 5 days later, they filed Form 4s, and they already started selling. So you can see they initially had the 60 million shares. Then after everything closed, 258 million shares, and then just within a couple of days, they just started dumping the shares onto the market as much as they could, pretty much. Okay, so on the same day that they announced the pipe with Antara is when they announced that they eventually they're going to do the proposal to convert the shares, do an RS, and increase the max share count. And here are the details for that. And that's also part of the reason why it gapped up so much in the first day, because now APE would have some value, right, where it could be converted into AMC. Okay? And then eventually on March 14th, the shareholders approved the vote. And you can see, though, it's funny because, such a small amount of those shareholders actually voted. And the other thing I'll say is Antara, as part of their deal, they were required to vote in favor of the conversion, and that's part of why the court case started. And we're going to go back for that. So a couple weeks before the shareholder vote, AMC investors and a pension fund accused the company of creating preferred shares in an attempt to eviscerate the voting power of common stockholders who had not supported issuing new shares. Right? Because if you remember before, they were not getting enough votes to prove it, and all of a sudden they dismissed that, created APE, and boom, all of a sudden, with Antara's backing, it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to get this approval for them to increase the shares authorization. So Vice Chancellor Zern, which was like the judge behind it, she put in a status quo order to stop the conversion from going through, but was still going to let the shareholder vote to happen. So even if the shareholder got approved, like it did, they weren't going to allow the conversion to go through until the settlement got resolved, right? So then AMC and the plaintiffs, they started working on a settlement, and they came into agreement, and then they asked Vice Chancellor Zern to remove the status quo order, which would let the settlement go through, let the conversion go through, etc. However, there was a couple other complications because, Rose Izzo, which was like one of the main people behind motion to intervene, and a couple others, they were, arguing against the settlement, and they kept filing motions and just making a whole mess and delaying it. So eventually the judge put in a special master who was appointed to give his recommendation on the case. And so eventually he did that. And then on June 21st, he came out with his, which I can show on the gap up on AMC. So that's going to be this gap down here, from here to here. He came out with his recommendation in the case, recommended that the court denied the objections to the settlement, blah, 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 and, telling Zern to approve the settlement and remove the status quo. So at this point, before this came out, the spread was at around $3 or so. And as expected, after this news comes out, it kind of reads as almost a guarantee that this conversion is going to go through, right? And so if the spread is still at $3, it just seems like it's free money, like a free money arb trade. You short AMC and go long APE for the arb to close, right? And as expected, a lot of people started putting it on. And even like banks, I think it was Cantor, it might have been someone else, going off the top of my head, they were putting out notes incentivizing people to put on the arb trade, buy puts of AMC, short AMC, long APE, etc. And so within 2 to 3 days, the overnight borrow just started going up like crazy, and it just went to like 900 to 1,000%. And here you can see in the after hours how the spread just started closing. I think it ended up holding at around like minus 2.5 for, that's this whole period here. I'll put a square. So this is when the special master came out, and this is how long it held until the next update, right? So basically, in essence, a ton of shorts came in. It became very crowded short, right? And then all of a sudden on July 21st, that's when, I'm sure everyone will recognize this move here, Vice Chancellor Zern came out with her opinion on the settlement, and she did not approve it. Now, the key thing is, which was hard to know then, is that it wasn't a final decision. I think only people that were really, really, really understood this case would probably have a good idea, but let's just ignore that for now. And so this is what happened, right? So you can imagine, you hear the words that the proposed settlement is not approved. All of a sudden, every single short, and it's millions of shares, and paying a super high bar for a last month, who are not in the money anymore, are going to have to cover, right? Because, they just don't know, right? And so that was that move. It was on a ton of volume. And I think if anyone was quick to it, it was just amazing long. Like, you don't even have to have a good understanding. All you have to know is super high borrow and a ruling not in favor of the people playing the ARB, right? And as we've seen before, you can get these really big squeezes like with Siri, right? So I think that was one of the best opportunities in the recent months, was, that long. And then here you can see APE, what happened to APE, it got smoked. And then I guess people started realizing that it wasn't a final decision, and they started bidding it back up, okay? And then, so this was the, I'm confused. Did I go back? Oops. Oh, it's because the reverse flip messed it up. Anyways, ignore that side. Anyway, so so this was AMC for the couple days after, right? After that 721 note, okay? And then, eventually 3 weeks later, August 11, then Vice Chancellor Zern, after, the plaintiffs and AMC, they revised their settlements. Eventually, it got approved, which basically means the status quo is going to be lifted. Essentially, the conversion will go ahead, reverse split go ahead, shares authorized increase go ahead, etc. And so, following this announcement, this is where you would think the spread would go down to like 30 cents, 50 cents, really close between AMC and APE. But, I think these are some potential reasons why it didn't close straight away. A lack of certainty on when the conversion will happen. It would be at least 10 days because I think NISA, you have to announce, 10 days in advance regarding a reverse split. And, the bar is obviously super high, so you're going to be paying a high bar for at least 10 days. There's always a risk of another motion being filed by like ISO and those trying to prevent the conversion and getting the status quo being put back in place. And there's always a risk of the ARB trade not working, right? Like every now and then you'll see a big ARB trade just mess up, like Siri had that big move, right? Okay. And then this was obviously the move when Vice Chancellor announced her decision to approve the settlement. AMC obviously got smoke and APE got bought a little bit. But yeah. And then on August 14th, AMC announces their decision, the decision of the Vice Chancellor, and they announced that they expect the reverse split to happen within 10 days, August 24th, and for APE to convert on August 25th. Now, I didn't see this, but on August 18th, ISO, they filed another motion to reinstate the status quo order. And, that was obviously one of the risks that was involved with something like this, right? But on August 21st, it was denied. But here I'm just going to go over like the backside ARB play now. So what we do know is that upon conversion, AMC likely wants to dilute a lot of shares, right? That was their whole goal of creating APE, was to be able to raise money and be able to increase that, share authorization. And we know that because the AMC bar was so high that a lot of APE long ARB traders just didn't short AMC. And so when that conversion goes ahead, or even leading up to it, really, they're going to want to dump their APE. And we know that Antara, as they've kept on selling, they're trying to get out of it. They've always been buying AMC puts. They've always been selling APE. And we also know that as the conversion goes through, that the AMC bar will come down, right? Because the shares outstanding will triple pretty much. Okay. So leading up into it, let me just quickly show. So here's when it got approved, and then you'll see it really had a steady bid for a couple days, and I think that's lack of uncertainty, high bar, etc. But I think one of the main reasons as well was on that Friday, which is this day here, there was just so much open interest between like $4 and $4.50 that it's just in the market makers, whoever's selling their options, in their best interest to be able to try and hold it as best as possible at that range, to get those calls or puts to, expire, worthless or cause the minimum amount of damage to them, right? And if anyone watched my Siri video, I think there was something similar happened there as well, because then on the next day, on Monday, it just collapses. Out of nowhere, it's just got this strong bid, and then boom, come Monday, it's just super heavy out the gate. You get consistent larger volume bars lower, and the market obviously starts beginning to close the spread. One thing I'll mention as well, coming into the open, the spread is at like 1.7. Now, obviously, this is just AMC minus APE, and the rate was still at around 1,000%. So that's around 10 cents per day. So, assuming you'll hold it into conversion, you're going to pay 4 nights of overnight, and you'll, as long as you don't get squeezed or something black swan happens, you'd collect a free 1.3 points, and that's if you're long APE and short AMC. And so, in my opinion, what happened was, no reason to hold it up for any OPEX anymore, and a ton of bigger players came in and just started shorting, and I'm sure Antara was involved as well to protect their APE holdings. And then midday, the judge ordered on that new ISO motion, which I mentioned was filed on August 18th. So now this is August 21st. She denied it, and that was posted on the AMC website. And that was pretty much the last roadblock confirmed out of the way. And it got a second leg out of that. Next day, same thing. Market's really starting to close the spread, and then it had the gap down because of the ex-dividend date for for those settlement obligations. So I just think, when you see that it seems like they hold it up into OPEX like on Siri, and then the next day it's so heavy out the gates, and it's just such a high chance that you can collect this ARB. It's just a really good short, and it's not like the volume doesn't or the move doesn't confirm either. It's not like you're shorting and it's going against you. It's like it's literally working in your favor. But that's that, and that's pretty much it. Obviously the reverse split happened. I don't really have much thoughts after the reverse split happened. My expectations is they'll probably do an ATM soon or something. Obviously, any questions, let me know. I think the main two trades were this short here in AMC and this long on APE. I think both of those are really good opportunities and one to review. So any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.